right, looks like we're going here. And how is everyone today? I am doing some stuff with my setup. It's a little different, so we'll see how that works. But I am also going to be using the iPad today because I'm going to be using Adobe Fresco to sketch out a character to animate inside of Adobe Animate later on. So let's go ahead and have a look here. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. So hi Hannah, hi Shannon. Welcome. Hopefully the video and the audio is all working for everyone. And I've just got a basic Fresco document here. So my idea for this is to just kind of create some sort of a sketch inside of Fresco that I'll then, the next time we do this, bring it into Adobe Animate and actually animate it. I'm not sure how I'm going to animate it yet. I might use layer parenting. I might use a rig with IK. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is just name my document here. So I'm just going to call this Creeper. I don't know exactly what I'm going to draw. I've got some ideas so far, but I want it to be sort of a creepy Halloween sort of character, right? So I'm going to hit save here, and awesome, there we go. What I did is I just created this as a document that's just the size of my iPad screen. I think that usually works pretty well with Fresco. And for this particular thing, I think I'm going to choose some basic charcoal brushes. Hey, Hannah, I am streaming. Hannah asks, are you streaming directly from Fresco or QuickTime? Neither. I am streaming from OBS, and I've just got my desktop, and you can actually pipe in your iPad. You can dock it using a cable. So I've just got a bunch of these, USB-C cables, and you just hook it up to your MacBook, and you're able to add the iPad in as a display capture in OBS. So that works a lot better for me than trying to use something like Reflector or QuickTime or anything like that. But you could use QuickTime for it. I mean, that would work too, right? That's what I usually do for class as well, right? So if I'm teaching and I want to show my students in a live setting something on my iPad, I'll usually just stream it through QuickTime. Yeah. So I do like the charcoal brushes quite a bit. So I think I'm going to kind of start with one of those. And let's see. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a more... Like last week, we had a chat with Anastasia. So if you haven't checked that out, check out that chat. And the one with Heather before that. And I hope to do more sort of discussion-based stuff moving forward, as well as creative stuff. The the main issue is just getting stuff to work, right? So I think at this point I've gotten everything to work, including my audio, which, when I interviewed Heather and we had our discussion, we had some issues with the audio, right? Which is unfortunate, but it looks like with Anastasia, things kind of came together and it all worked out. So that's really good for, things moving forward, right? So I'm just going to choose Vine Charcoal 1 here. And usually when I pick out a brush inside of Fresco, I just give it a little test, see how it works. Just to kind of see. And that's pretty good. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm going to undo that. If you don't know, just a 2-finger tap does a step-by-step undo in Fresco. And I mean, at this point, it's basically just let's start animating, or drawing rather. So because I am drawing this with the consideration for animating it later on, what you would want to do for something like that is to draw it in a way that it can be easily animated. So I'm going to draw different body parts across different layers. So like the head will be on a layer, you know, the different arm pieces and torso and leg pieces on their own separate layers. And in that way, it's going to make it so much easier to bring into Adobe Animate, or even bring into just Photoshop or anything like that if you want to do any additional tweaks to it. So let's have a look here. And, you know, I think I might as well start with the head, right? Because that's going to be, that's the showcase of most any kind of character, right? And this is going to be a sort of Halloween themed set of streams. So I've got some music on. I don't know how well that's coming across. This is my album 6 Threads from 10 years ago. And it contains a lot of kind of like, kind of creepy Halloween stuff, right? And it's pretty suitable for something like this. So let's have a look. Usually with the charcoal stuff, I start off just doing regular old charcoal. I don't usually use any sort of colors. You can, of course, change your colors in the color picker here, but, you know, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I usually just sketch everything out first and then color it later if I want to color it. So let's actually have a look. Right on. So kind of the idea I'm getting from this is, you know, you get something where it's like, I think about gourds, right? When I was growing up in Massachusetts, there was a garden in the backyard. And I used to grow a bunch of different stuff in the backyard, in the garden. And cucumbers, carrots, potatoes, things like that. But we also grew, in the fall, gourds, which was fun. Of course, what would happen is, so I was just a kid, you know, and I didn't know exactly the proper way to prepare gourds for preservation. And what I would do is I would actually take the gourds and I wouldn't dry them completely, which was, you know, just an oversight on my part. I didn't understand things like that at the time. But yeah, you have to dry out your gourds before you put any sort of like shellac on them. And what would happen to the gourds, of course, is that they would decompose. They would rot. And it was gross, right? So that's kind of the inspiration I'm taking for this, since we are talking Halloween and things like that. And hey, Georgina's joined us. So hi, Georgina. Thank you for joining the live stream. I know the timing is weird where you are for my streams usually, so great. All right, so that's basically what I'm going with here in terms of inspiration, is my old, rotted, failed attempts at preserving gourds every autumn when I was growing up. So let's go and have a look. Lots of gourds have like a bulb kind of thing, right? Something like that. And you know, I used to use charcoal quite a bit back when I was actually, you know, doing more stuff with physical media. So I do really appreciate charcoal brushes inside of Animate, or keep on doing that inside of Fresco, not Animate. We're gonna deal with Animate later. Actually, that's not that good. It's a little too thick. There we go. Let's change this up a bit. All right, that's better. And we can get a nice little stem going on here. So it's just a basic gourd shape. And as we're saying, you know, one of the things where you'd notice inside your gourds that, you know, when you first started noticing that they were going bad, they'd start getting wrinkly, right? And they'd wrinkle from, usually from the area where you were sitting them on, you know, a table or whatever. And, you know, they would start to put off an unpleasant aroma. So Shannon's asking about the shortcut for undo. It's just if you do a so here's a neat story. So back in 2015, I had to do a project, a developer project for the Computer History Museum in California, and I mentioned this on a live presentation I did yesterday, actually. And it was my first interaction since probably around 2000 with Apple computers. So I was completely against using any sort of Apple hardware for the longest time, mostly because Steve Jobs was such a jackass around the whole Flash player thing on iPad and everything, an iPhone. And, you know, so I avoided that hardware. I was always just using Windows and Android. And obviously things have changed, right? Because I'm using an iPad Pro. I'm streaming this off of a MacBook Pro, and things are different in these days, right? So what happened was I distinctly remember like trying to get used to the hardware. The thing was I had to purchase a MacBook Pro because the hardware that the museum was going to be running this on was actually, you know, Mac based. So they wanted to make sure that I was on the same platform that it would be running on. So I was forced to buy a MacBook. And this was, again, early 2015. So, you know, with a MacBook with the touchpad, I found the touchpad really nice. And to right click, you know, usually I'm used to right clicking with a mouse on Windows. To right click on a touchpad on a MacBook, you do this sort of thing, right? You take two fingers and you like click like that, and that's a right click. So I didn't know what the terminology for that was, and I always called it prong click because it's like a prong, right? So that's the exact same thing that we're doing here. That's undo on Fresco is prong click. So you just double finger tap and it will undo anything you're doing, which is super. I mean, it's one of the best things about, you know, dealing in digital artwork is that you're able to actually erase things and undo things and so forth without having things be like just really obviously like erased. Like if you use like a pink eraser, just a regular pencil lead eraser to do anything like that, it's you know, it becomes very obvious very quickly that you've erased something, right? So I'm just kind of starting out with this kind of gourd shape here, right? And I'm just trying to think of how this might be translated into a face and a head for my particular character. So, yeah, he's coming up pretty good. And it's always hard to do like work like this. It's a lot easier to do stuff like inside of Animate on Behance and then like, you know, keep track of the chat and everything. But I will try to keep track of what's going on in the chat as we go through here. It is more difficult when you're doing kind of more creative work like this than sort of step-by-step mechanical work. This is looking pretty good. I'm fairly happy with how this is coming out here. Which brush tool am I using now? This is a charcoal brush, so it's just the Vine Charcoal one, and I've got it pumped up to 202 pixels, Let's increase the flow a little bit too. One thing I found, so here's something that I found out like probably about 6 months after I actually started using an iPad Pro with a Pencil 2, was that like it was really difficult to actually like, you know, I'd have to put a lot of pressure to actually get like proper lines and everything. And the thing is, like this little nib on the iPad or the Pencil 2, you know, it unscrews. And the same thing with the Pencil 1, I believe. It unscrews. So if it's loose, you're going to have a hard time actually like drawing things and sketching. So I always make sure now that I twist the little nib on my Pencil 2 to make sure that I actually get this stuff running correctly. And you can see, I don't know if it might have been a little loose actually when I started drawing this, because I was feeling that same sort of feeling that, you know, things weren't actually drawing as simple as they should be, right? If things feel a little forced, like you're having to unnaturally do certain things with the pencil when you're using Fresco, it probably has something to do with the nib being not tight enough, right? So I originally thought of this gourd idea being like a little more kind of rotted looking, but being that it's a bit misshapen, I think that's kind of okay too. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to create the different body parts that I'm going to animate in separate layers. Because when I bring this Fresco, if you don't know, Fresco saves everything as basically a Photoshop cloud document. So I'd be able to actually open this up inside of Photoshop and then like save it locally as a PSD file. And then I could bring that PSD file into Adobe Animate and preserve all the different layer attributes. So when I'm actually going through and trying to figure out like how to kind of manage this sort of thing, I mean, that's what I'm going to keep in mind, is that like for each bit, I definitely want to have them isolated on separate layers, right? So let's go for the torso now. I got a gourd for the head. I mean, the torso, I'm thinking kind of scarecrow-ish, right? It's like just like a bundle of leaves. And that's something else. Like I used to, in the autumn times, like stuff an old shirt with like leaves and things like that. Put it up. I mean, it was scary for other people, but it was kind of cool to, have something scary out there that I made, that I could feel, out in the woods, that is standing there and that you could see from the house. And that, I know I made it. That it's out there, it's something I made. It's not something for me to be afraid of. But, if other people were around, if they were creeping around in my backyard and they shouldn't be, they might be a little more afraid. So I'm going to add another layer here. And let's focus on the torso. And let's drag this layer underneath there. If you long press on any of these layers, you can drag them up and down. And I'm just going to start just doing like a very basic kind of outline of what the torso of this thing might look like. So now I'm thinking ribs, right? So get those ribs in place. And I want so notice the head's like really large, right? I want the head to be really large. It's unnatural, it's unsettling. It's something that people don't expect. And I think a lot of stuff with, you know, fear and Halloween and stuff like that definitely has to do with, you know, psychological elements. Let's put in a breastbone here. Gonna have to have a neck stem. And I'm using a pretty big brush right now. Let's take that down a little bit. You know, with stuff like this, I mean, you can be as detailed as you want. I'm thinking about... I mean, most of the art that I do is kind of rough. You know, I like the rough aspect to it. Let's put a little belly button there. So, it's rough, right? And that's fine. It's fine for art to be rough because, you know, the way I do stuff, like, it's not as pre-envisioned as the way a lot of other people do stuff, right? So, I mean, you can create these sort of things and, you know, have a plan going in and being able to execute that plan when it comes to your artwork. But for me, for some of the stuff that I do, I find it often works a lot better for not only like the sort of like little ideas that I have about the artwork, but also like, you know, when it all comes together, it if it's more raw, then it's kind of more honest, I think. Whereas, you know, a lot of art can veer too much into the territory of design. So I think that design and art are two like related but separate endeavors, right? Art should be just making stuff, just playing with stuff, just being creative. Whereas design is more planned out. It's less to do with, I guess, emotion, feeling. It's more cerebral, right? It's like you're planning like, oh yeah, I've got the intention to do this, and these are sort of some of the things that I need to do to get that done. So here's how I'm going to go about it, and that's kind of it, right? When you're dealing with something like this, it's much more, hey, let's see where this goes, right? So this is starting to take on sort of a headless horseman vibe, which I did not mean to have. Oh, that's interesting. Behance is yelling at me. Hey, everybody in the chat, is everything going okay? It looks like things might be... Well, there we go. Let me know if you're having any problems or if anything's buffering or anything weird. I just got a message from Behance saying that things are a little squirrely, which is not not what I'm looking for, right? We don't want that to happen. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. So let me know if you're seeing anything weird. So this is turning into something that's almost like a corpse with a gourd for a head, right? Pretty fun. Oh, huh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's some kind of network trouble. I know that, you know, next week is Adobe Max, and they're going to be using Behance quite a bit, is my understanding. So we've been kind of told to maybe hang back. So I'm not going to be doing a stream next week. I'm going to skip the Max week. But, you know, they might be doing stuff right now for, you know, in preparation for that. So who knows? Who knows? I've got a pretty good internet connection here, so I don't think it's me. I'm actually going to change my document size because there's no room for his legs. So let's take this up to 3,000 here. There we go. And that's just perfect. Man, so, I mean, honestly, Fresco is like one of the main reasons that I bought an iPad, you know? I've got like a bunch of charcoal and, you know, canvas paper, canvas board, stuff like that over there. I've got Conte crayons, I've got acrylics, all sorts of stuff. But I mean, you know, if you're able to do it digitally, it does certainly, you know, it gives you a lot of allowance for failure and for experimentation, things like that, because you can always go and switch things around however you want. So I'm going to add another layer here. This is going to be for some of the arm segments. So I'm going to start off with this arm. Yeah, this guy is super skeletal at this point, which he started off as a gourd. So it's very interesting how human things can get, you know, if you kind of play with them enough. And here's a trick too. So like as I'm going through here, you know, I'm keeping in mind that I want to animate this later. So in the part 2 of this, so I'm keeping everything on separate layers, right? And if I want to edit, like if I want to edit this breastbone to give it more definition here, I want to do that inside the layer that it's actually on, so that when I translate this into Adobe Animate, that I actually preserve all of the work that I've done in a way that is easily animatable. I mean, you can always take like a flattened image and like make selections and then like separate it out into different limbs, torso, head, that sort of thing. But if you've already got it, I mean, it's just, if you've already got it when you're actually creating the thing, it's gonna work out even better for you, right? So have some sort of intention when doing it, if that is your intention. If you're just drawing a spooky, you know, that looks like a pear. It doesn't even look like a gourd. That's okay. It's still pretty. So can you show how to extend the board? Yeah. So what I basically did is I went into my settings here. So the little gear. And then you got your size settings. And if you click on that, you can choose a preset, of course, or you can just like put in some new numbers here and then hit OK, and it'll actually resize it for you. So that's one thing that's nice about like Fresco and XD, right? And some of the newer applications like this is that you're not actually confined to your initial choices. So, you know, if you create something at a specific size, you can always change it later if you need to. So in my case, I needed room for legs. So yeah, I'm gonna change it and make sure that we've got some legs going on here. And I just totally like move my guy around, which I didn't mean to do. Prong click, undo. There we go. All right, so there's that bone. Let's go ahead and create an additional one here for the lower arm. And if you know anything about the lower arm, the human arm, there's actually 2 bones here instead of just one. The upper arm has 1 bone. The lower arm has 2 bones. So we want to make sure to do that inside of this layer. like to lightly do things at first, then add definition later with these different brushes. You know, maybe on a lot of these bones, there might be still some flesh here and there, right? That's pretty good. See, if I take too long with this, right? We'll be doing this forever, and I've got other appointments today that I need to take care of, so I might have to speed this up a little bit. Or, you know, maybe we have like 3 parts to this, right? All right, so we're dealing with the right hand. The thumb is facing toward the pelvis. And that's the case in either hand, right? One, we got 2, we got 3, we got 4, and our thumb. I want to give him some nasty kind of claws here too. Just kind of subtle little hints of claws, because that makes him more scary. If something can cut you and it's sharp and has enormously long nails on its hand, it's going to be more frightening, right? So, create a new layer. So, I mean, this is the process, right? And you could always like copy the previous layer for any of these things. But it's going to look better if you just draw them all bit by bit, because they're going to be unique that way. Maybe some of these I'm thinking like have something like hanging off, right? Maybe there's just like tatters of cloth or moss or something hanging off of these bones. Let's grab this one too. So this adds quite a bit to it, right? This is coming out pretty spooky. I'm liking this quite a bit. And the thing is with this stuff, you can always add like more detail if you need it. So I've got my brush down to like 17 right here, and I'm just adding in detail in some of these layers that might be lacking in detail. And I'm just doing it in a very kind of precise way, right? I'm isolating what needs to happen. I'm doing it. And you can go back and forth. So the head here, it's funny, like I drew the head first, right? And you know, it's turning out to look a bit different than the rest of the body. It's not as kind of like, I don't know, gamey But that's easily fixed. I can select the head and just draw some of these little things here too, right? And you can think about too, when I bring this into Adobe Animate, you know, all these little pieces that inside of Fresco are showing up in a very sort of like sketcherly way, are actually going to translate pretty well into the layers that we create inside of Animate. So there we go. It's looking a bit more like it all belongs together now. Let's grab this guy here, do some more work on him. I need some connective tissue here. It's just some stuff that's kind of falling away here and there, right? I mean, really, same thing with the pelvis. So don't forget the pelvis. You know, it's always fun. So like Adobe Max. Oh, Shannon's got a new iPad coming. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard because it's like there's so many things you can't do on an iPad that you can usually do on, you know, a MacBook or Windows machine or whatever it is, right? But then there's stuff like this where it's like, you know, I mean, I've got, you know, Intuos 4 here too with a stylus and a touchpad and everything, but it's completely different when you're actually drawing on the screen, on the surface, aside from, you know, drawing disconnected from that surface, right? And I think that's where the iPad, you know, really does kind of excel, and where it does prove its worth is in situations like this. I'm just doing some additional shading on the pelvis here. And here's the problem, right? Is that, you know, in a live stream like this, it's like you create all this stuff and it's like, okay, that's great. But I know, like, as soon as the stream ends that I'm going to want to like tweak this thing more. But I'm not going to, because I don't know, that's kind of cheating, because I'm doing this specifically for the Behance stream, right? I'm not doing this for myself. But I kind of am. I have always enjoyed drawing like spooky Halloween type stuff. Just like, you know, so when I was growing up, when I was like, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, I discovered, you know, Lucio Fulci, the director, and you know, House by the Cemetery, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, films like that. And I mean, he had some like horrible looking stuff in those films, you know? And that stuff has always stayed with me. And yes, don't let your 8-year-old or your 9-year-old watch House by the Cemetery. Unless you know they can handle it. God, I love that movie. You know, if there was like one film that like was the only film I could watch for like the rest of my life, it might be House by the Cemetery. It's just such a, it's like there's only like a few actors in it, and it's like, it's got like such atmosphere to it. And, you know, it really kind of like, it's almost like a little time capsule, right? And it's just so like, it's just like the perfect little film. And I don't know. I mean, anybody on the chat, have you ever seen Lucio Fulci's House by the Cemetery? If you haven't, it comes highly recommended by me. And if you do watch it and you haven't seen it before, I would love to chat about it sometime. We could do like a House by the Cemetery themed Behance stream. It'd be awesome. Let's add another hand in there. And I want to keep the other hand in view so I can be sure to kind of match what's going on with that one. I could talk about hands when it comes to House by the Cemetery, but for anybody who hasn't seen it, that'd be kind of spoilery, so I will not do that. Although the film is, what is it, like 1981, 1978, something like that. So it's an older film. I mean, I don't know. But if you're doing like a Halloween type thing, this Halloween, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, if you're doing something like that and you're doing like a little, trying to figure out what movies to watch. I mean, any of Fulci's zombie quadrilogy is great. So we got like House by the Cemetery, we got Zombie, we've got The Beyond, and we've got City of the Living Dead. Those are all good films. My favorite being House by the Cemetery. All right, I'm going to stop talking about Lucio Fulci now. But thank you for humoring me, everyone. And my love for Italian 1970s horror films. And again, I'm doing this pretty rough. Let's get some nails on this guy. I'm going to do this a little bit different. They're more crossed than the previous hand, right? So like I said, the hands being a little bit different. Now notice here, so I've made an error, right? So the right hand is way bigger looking than the left hand is. But because I've isolated this on its own layer, of course I can transform it and make some changes here and fix that. So choosing the transform tool, and you can even like just test like, oh yeah, between this hand and that hand, here we go. Now it's the right size. This is one of them, you know, this is one of the awesome things about doing this digitally, is that you're able to go ahead and, you know, you can make mistakes and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. You can fix your mistakes so easily. So I'm not exactly liking how this hand is looking here. So I'm going to add some more kind of connective stuff to it. A little bit of, just to ground it a little more. And this stuff will translate into Adobe Animate just fine. I think I do need a bit more shading on the torso here. Yeah, that looks good. So what's going on? Sorry, I got a little caught up in just the little bits of shading here. I feel like I missed something. Oh! Using white charcoal against a black watercolor. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, because they've got that paper that's like a... So I always think of stuff like this, like they have that black paper that you can like scratch off. I can't remember what it's called. It might be just called scratch paper or something. But it's like, it's neat because it's got like that super high contrast. And yeah, I mean, you just like scrape off the black film that's over the paper, and it exposes like either white underneath. Sometimes it's a specific color. And gosh, I can't remember what that stuff is called, but it's fine. So, thank you, Workspace. Workspace says nice work. And Alec, thank you. Hello, how are you? Welcome to the stream. So anybody who's just coming in, we've been sketching using just the pixel brushes inside of Fresco here. I'm using Vine Charcoal 1 with a couple of small tweaks to the brush, right? And what I'm doing is just, we're creating like, I mean, I started off with the idea of a gourd, which looks more like a pear, but yeah, whatever. Maybe I'll make some worms coming out of them or something. But yeah, I mean, we started off with that, and it's sort of come into, you know, something else entirely as we've gone through this. And this just came to me, so I'm just doing it. Sometimes that works out just great. Right? Just adding some sort of like, man, I don't like that one. Undo. Sometimes it's a very, very kind of light touch. It's a you don't want to be too light with the pencil, but you don't want to be too heavy-handed either, right? So maybe the gourd's like powering this damn cadaver. All right. Anyway, we do need some legs because he's not gonna be able to walk around if he doesn't have any legs. Yeah, Georgina remembers the that stuff. And yeah, you can. I mean, you can buy it. I think still, those weird papers, pages, whatever. It's funny, Behance keeps throwing a fit about my stream, about my internet connection. But I think it's pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens on the replay. It says my video quality is poor. So that's sad. If anybody has any insights in that, please let me know. I hope it's not really poor. So I'm gonna get these last few bones in here. A very kind of like quick way. For two reasons. Number one is that, oh, look what I did. I need to erase that. So I'm not paying attention. I need to keep that. where it belongs on here or there, right? Oops. So if I want to draw in there, I gotta select that layer, or else things will go haywire for me later on. Oops, and I did it again. Undo. Sometimes when you've got a bunch of layers like this, it's hard to remember exactly which layer goes with what, right? Actually, I'm liking this like black and bone kind of look. Please reload the page. Come on, Behance. If you like this. Looks like Behance is not exactly being cool with what I'm doing right now. I don't know why. Hey, anybody in the chat, if you can still hear me, if this is still going on, I'm not sure if it is or not. I am just going to finish up these little bits and pieces here, and then we'll call it. But please let me know if you're seeing and hearing me, or if everything is just goofing off on me here. So I am just going to draw out the very basics of these different pieces that I still need. And if things do go haywire, gosh, yeah, I don't know. So Georgina says she reloaded 3 times, but we're back. It's really weird. I'm seeing like all sorts of weird stuff. So, I mean, in the interest of what we have going on here, I think I might just like, I don't know. I guess I'll try to finish these legs, and then we'll call it, right? Because I don't know what's going on with Behance and the stream and so forth. So, because of that, I don't want to be doing stuff that's not actually, happening, right? So I'm going to fill these in a bit and finish them up later if need be. Got these feet. Feet are always fun. Lots of people don't like sketching hands and feet and things like that. I actually like hands and feet because I think there's just like a lot of complexity there that is, there's a lot of like room for play, right? So it's fun for me to do like complex things like hands, like feet. So you got the ankle bone here. And of course, I mean, you can always, if you're doing stuff with like drawing a corpse, a cadaver, a gourd-headed revenant, whatever this might be, you can always use like reference materials for this sort of thing. So you could use like medical books and things like that. This is going to look really fun when we bring it into Animate and start playing around with it. I'm going to add some additional detail to the leg bones here. And so I think I'm trying to remember what. Oh, that's not it. Okay. All right. Make sure to choose the right leg for these different pieces. So let's see what's going on here. Oh yeah, just one brush for a piece of art. Yeah. Yeah, Georgina mentions one brush for an entire piece. And absolutely, I mean, if you think about, you know, non-digital artwork, you're using different brushes maybe, but if you're doing like charcoal stuff, like generally you're just dealing with a stick of charcoal, you know? Let's see. Legs. So yeah, I like to go back. I like to do them rough at first. Then go back and like add some lines to it. Add some shading. Define things a little bit better. You know, there's always mistakes, so you can always go through and make things a bit more, you know, true to life, right? I'm just adding some extra stuff, just hanging off of this guy. Different points. And it's really good to put a little connective tissue in there, you know, between the different joints and so forth. Oh, see, I goofed that up. Look at that. That's unfortunate. So I goofed this up. You can see there's stuff there, but I do want to preserve it. I don't want to just undo it. So I can go ahead and select that. And yeah. Well, erase. There we go. Stop. Cancel. I gotta deselect this. There we go. Just get some more stuff just hanging off of there. And again, a little bit of connection between these bones, right? So these feet are too small also. Let's go ahead and fix that. I mean, the hands are so big, and I intentionally made them quite large to make them a bit scary. But the feet need to match. He's got his stupid gourd head. I don't know. It's too big. Let's fix that too. So here's the thing. When you're doing like character-based stuff like this, inside of Fresco, there we go. Nice. So there's a couple things here. I mean, like, I kind of like the way that his bones are so like dark down there. So I think what I would do is probably like fill these in a little bit more. And let's see. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this stream, everybody. I'm sorry if it's goofing up for you. Things happen. I'm gonna darken some of these bones because I really like how those legs look just like super dark. That's nice. Let's do this one too. So this is the thing. It's like, you know, like any process like this, it's you know, you go back and forth. You're like, okay. Oh, I don't like what I just did there. I need to make that a lot smaller. Somehow it got up to 48, which is a bit much. There we go. Yeah, just going back, adding a little shading, adding some sharp, defining elements to these bones. It's the fun stuff, you know? And you know, I mean, another thing, I like to have things be irregular, right? Things look too clean. It doesn't work, especially when it comes to things like, you know, horrific elements like this. You know, you think about, let's just take a gourd, right? That's rotting. You know, you've definitely got some chaos going on. Things are just falling apart. So you definitely want to express that when it comes to when you're trying to, you know, just kind of capture these sorts of things and emulate them in a form like this, right? You've definitely got stuff that's just falling apart, you know? And that's a good theme for this particular year, right? Because everything is definitely kind of a mess. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of other things we could do to make this fella more scary, more frightening. But I think it's pretty good. It's getting there. He's not a pleasant person, right? He's not somebody you want to have coffee with. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna stop this here because we've got him, you know, pretty much there, and there's enough of him that we can move on with part 2. And again, I'm not gonna do part 2 next week because next week is Adobe Max. So because of that, you know, that's gonna drown out anything that happens on Behance Live. I am going to postpone this a week. So next Thursday, not next Thursday, but the Thursday after Adobe Max, we will be back with this guy, and I will bring him into Adobe Animate, and we will rig him up and animate this guy for Halloween. So I might do a couple of small adjustments to him beforehand, but when we come back in part 2, we'll see what's going around in there. So if you want to see me animate him, be sure to, either keep an eye on this channel. What I've been doing is actually, let's go ahead and hide my iPad. And if we look at Adobe, or Behance rather, so if we go to Behance here, and you can see we've got, oh, that's nice. I didn't even realize that like the stream shows up on my Behance page when I'm streaming. That's pretty cool. It shows you how much I know about this stuff. So what we'll do is, I want to show something I started doing, not in videos under work. So I've been adding like a little note of when my next live stream will be as a piece of work here, until they get the scheduling stuff all sorted out in a better way. So definitely, keep an eye on this, and, I'll announce what date and time, but it will be the Thursday after Max for sure. And we'll bring this from Fresco into Photoshop, into Animate, and then we will animate our gourd head cadaver thing, right? All right, so I'm looking here, and anyone who's on the live stream, thanks for joining. And if you're watching the replay, thanks for taking the time for that as well. I'll see you all in a bit. I hope everybody's going to Max next week, since it is free and virtual and all that stuff. So I'm definitely going to get into a couple sessions myself. All right. See everyone later.